up, everybody? It is Alex from Heavy New York calling from the quarantine zone again, and this time we got Voiicide of the Design Abstract. Thank you so much for your time today. It's really great to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So, in case you couldn't tell by my review of Technotheism, I really enjoyed it, and it really is the record right now for me that every band has to beat for 2021. I really want to know, like, what the thought process was going into the making of this record. Was there kind of like a preconceived idea? Was there kind of like a vision that you had going into it? How did Technotheism sort of see the light of day?
Yeah, I mean, I'll be completely honest about it because it's gonna make me sound a little bit crazy, but that's okay. The idea of technotheism as a word, as a we created technology. Technology is our god. We created our god. That sort of weird cyclical thing where it's like we had a hand in the creation of it. It was either gonna be a cult or an album, and I'm already a musician, so like. I just I started writing a plot around it, but the plot was centered around that sort of idea. Um, yeah, since I just happened to be in a band and the aesthetic kind of fit.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you decided to go with the music route and not the cult route.
Yeah.
Just saying, it didn't work very well for the Unabomber, who had a similar vision. So,
Yeah.
yeah, was if you don't mind me asking, but was like Fear Factory kind of like an influence in the making of this by having that concept, being that they would always write about like artificial intelligence and sort of like a post-apocalyptic landscape where artificial intelligence is kind of like the holier than thou.
Honestly, the the most that I know about Fear Factory as a band is like a dude I used to work with sometimes played them, but I never personally got like super into them. Like my ideas for album concepts mostly come just from me like reading sci-fi. I'm like a huge sci-fi nerd as far as like books and stuff go, but recently I found well, I mean, I've listened to Scar Symmetry for a while. They're a huge influence,
Great band.
but I was like really into Holographic Universe. That was like one of my favorite albums of all time. And somebody was recently like, well, what about like the Singularity Part One? And I was like, oh, that's without Christian, whatever. And so he's like, listen to it. And so I'm like, oh, wow, this is pretty much that. Like it's not quite the same. They don't do the same type of scoring things, but it's definitely like thematically very similar. It's pretty on point, and I love that album now.
Yeah, I mean, Scar Symmetry I consider to be one of the most underrated bands of all
Yeah.
time. Like, I was so thankful to see them. It was like at the tail end of 2016, and oh my God, Purr is just one of the best guitar players out there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They make really good stuff. I'm kind of upset that I like after when Christian left the band, I remember checking out the subsequent album and I like wasn't really into it, so I just kind of stopped listening and just kept on listening to Holographic Universe over and over again. And it's a shame because yeah, it's a little different, but they're the new vocalists. Their style has kind of grown on me a
yeah. I
lot
mean,
more.
they're really good, and if you get a chance to see it live, go see it. I promise you won't regret it. They're absolutely killer. They're still a great band.
It's one of the only bands I haven't seen live, honestly.
Well, yeah, we got to make that.
It's one of the few that's on the list.
Well, what's stopping you from seeing them live now? I can't possibly imagine, right?
Yeah,
Now,
exactly.
obviously having this sort of concept in mind, this obviously would influence the lyrics and the vocals and stuff but would you say it also very much influenced the music itself in a way?
Uh, it's sort of weird, like that sound, the whole like, okay, it's orchestral metal, but like there is this weird sort of synthetic layer to it. Like, I'm sure when these songs were kind of happening, I had that idea of like this whole grand technotheism concept in mind. But more often than not, the lyrics are written to reflect how the music sounds, not the other way around, which is weird because I'll set out to write specific songs that fill in plot points because technotheism was a plot. And so like, say like track 6, Voidwalkers, that isn't the first incarnation of a song called that. I think we had 3 versions of The Return. Like we tried one, we did it almost to completion. I'm like, this isn't working. Tried another one, same thing. The old version, like The Return #2, like almost made it onto the album until like really recently. I was like, you know what, it doesn't fit in, and so we actually took a song from another project that me and Logan do called Hollow Again and turned it into a design abstract song. So like we do kind of purpose build the songs to fit the plot points, but at the same time, a lot of the correlation between the sound and like the layers in the lyrics happened because I was writing the lyrics to fit the music.
Hmm. Have you ever had like the best lyrics ever, and then they're always like they just don't fit on any arrangement? They're always like too many syllables above.
Uh, I don't know if I write lyrics weird, but when I sit down and type out lyrics, I like have the BPM and the rhythm in my head. So that almost never happens for me. I don't like, it's very rare that I'll just sit out and write magnificent lyrics that aren't to a structure already. Um, I don't know why. So I've never really had that problem. I think there's some times where I'll find a really nice string of words conceptually and I'll use it too many times and try to reword it and find synonyms. And I'm like, I just need to trust that this will hit home the first time. That's kind of the closest I get to that.
And obviously, being that the music and the concept really go hand in hand with each other, and like you put that much effort, is there also room for this album to be open to interpretation? Because I felt like there was a lot of emotional aspects that could resonate with people, whether they are into like the concept of artificial intelligence, or the concept of being taken over by technology. I feel like musically this could almost resonate with the emotional aspects of people as well.
Yeah, that was one of the big goals of the band, kind of moving forward from like the older albums, like specifically like I don't know, like Emanate and Corrupt were like the first two, and then Esoteric was like a whole other thing. But one of the biggest goals was like I want to tell a story that's like if people care, it is a proper start to finish like narrative. But if people don't care, the lyrics are still there and they mean something. They have an impact. And it's almost impossible to strike that balance because some songs, if it's just pure exposition, it sounds really nerdy and it's hard to resonate with. Say a Data Shield Attack. That's one of my personal favorites, but it is very just things that are happening. I guess the chorus is a little bit vague, but like the lyrics, most of them spell out like, this is what the characters are doing. This is what's happening now. And like, I don't know. It still packs an emotional punch because that song is massive and epic and great. I really like that song. But yeah, the goal for Technotheism and everything moving forward is that to have that duality of both lyrics that can mean something to someone who doesn't care about the plot because the choruses are something that emotionally resonate, but also they tell a full story, start to finish plot. And that's like such a freaking hard balance. It's harder than making the music sound like technology.
Yeah.
It's the goal. Yeah.
I showed this album to somebody, and they gave it a subgenre name because nowadays people like to just say a word and add core at the end of it, and then it's just like a brand new subgenre that ends up on Wikipedia with like two bands. And somebody said that this could classify as what they call rave core.
Interesting. I guess we'd. I would classify like Amaranth under that category.
Well, Amaranth is awesome.
Yeah, but they have like a lot more like really dancey synth. We sometimes do that. I guess it would work. There's some pretty like synthy songs on there.
I will admit, not very professional for me to say in an interview, but fuck it. This album does work very well with CBD. So I'm just going to say that right now.
All right.
So it works great sober as well. So the straight edge kids would love it too.
That's good.
Yeah. Now going by the name of Voiicide, like, do you almost feel like that this character that you portray, this is only something that is prevalent with the songwriting, with the design abstract, and nothing else, or like, would you say that with this music you're portraying somebody very different from who you personally are, or is Voiicide basically a direct extension of who you personally are?
It's more the latter. Like I have like the reason that I go by Voiicide as a stage name now, and previously I went under Technophage because I had a solo project called Project Technophage. Pretty self-explanatory name. And that was kind of, you can hear in the music where I had all of these influences. Like at the time that I was writing Technotheism, I was also writing an album called Soliloquy, which ended up coming out under Hollow Again, but it's like an atmospheric, like doomy black metal album. And then like I was writing like straight up like industrial pop bangers, and I'm like, this can't all be this band. Like, this band is already schizophrenic. Like, it's too much. And so I ended up branching off, and I took a lot of the really shamelessly trancy sort of electronic stuff out of Technotheism, believe it or not. Like, Relentless, that intro, like after there's like the build up and then it cuts and then there's like you hear like that kind of sparkling static synth, but that main orchestral violin line, like that used to be like a really dumb trance hook, like a just like really shameless, and I'm like, this isn't working. And so I went through the album and cut all that stuff out, and I'm like, I'm gonna make this its own thing, and that was Project Technophage. And then I got bored of that and I changed it to Voiicide, and now it's like, it's still a solo project. It's like kind of angsty goth rock, sort of Catatonia. It's just Catatonia inspired. There's no way around it. I just love Catatonia.
That band is amazing.
It's basically like, I guess the biggest thing is like my name, my real name. That's like incidental. Like I didn't make that. I just happened to be that, and I feel like it doesn't really matter. The fact that like I can choose to be Voiicide, and you can dig into that. If you search that, it comes up with like, oh, there's all this other music and stuff. And that's what I go under for a lot of the projects that I work on, because I work on a bunch.
It's a great
that's the biggest
campaign.
thing. Sorry?
It's a great marketing strategy.
I mean, yeah, I'm not like the first one to do it. Like I know like, Dimmu Borgir Shagrath, I know he's got a real name, but like he's Shagrath, that's just kind of, and it's like, it's the same sort of thing. Like I pick a pseudonym. The other guys don't really want to, which is fine. But like, yeah, I don't know. I don't feel like there's a purpose in tying it to my real name, because I don't have any control over that, and it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, yeah, and I think for having this style that you do, I mean, I'll admit that there's times where people like portray a character, and sometimes it gets kind of like lost to the point where it almost seems like that becomes more important than the music itself. But I think you have the best like of both worlds, where you kind of have like an alias to go under that I think defines your songwriting structure. And I think that like, there's times, I'm not going to mention any band names, but like there's times where people like dress in a certain way and, saying I'm this and only this and, and I'm a failure if I do something else. Like you can only go so far like doing that.
Yeah.
I feel like you have the best of both worlds, where you portray somebody different from yourself, but your music is so honest that I think if people want to get to know you personally, they could just listen to the music.
Yeah, exactly. That's kind of what I go for. Like, I mean, I'm not trying to like hide behind, I'm too famous. I don't want people to figure out my real name. Like if you search for it, you're going to find it, because like it's tied into stuff here and there, but it's like, but if you want to talk to me, just like message the page, it's like, there's nothing, there's no like walls or anything there. It's just, yeah, it kind of helps me. I guess one way to think of it is to stay in character too. Like, yeah, there's a difference between Voiicide and who I like just am, in general as a person, but obviously it's more of an extension of who I how I want to come across and stuff like that. It's not like hard for me to turn on the Voiicide thing. It's always there, just toned down.
Yeah. And with going back to Technotheism, with having sort of like this concept and stuff, is there any aspect, if you don't mind me asking, is there any aspect of maybe personal experiences involved in this as well?
That was the case for, if you listened to Corrupt, which I'm kind of meh on that one now. Like, it's been out for a little while. It was going to be a full-length album, and then we turned it into a 5-track EP. That album, the full length, was just straight up just a personal experience to me. That character, Technophage, was very clearly me and what I was going through. It was kind of subjected to metaphor. It was a cyberpunk sort of, this guy uploads his mind to virtual reality. It's pretty cool. It's just the music. Yeah, we cut a whole bunch of songs. That was that album. With Technotheism, honestly, this one's just pure narrative. I wanted to have some additional media to go with it, whether that be, we originally talked about commissioning a comic, which would have been awesome, or even just writing like a sort of, not maybe a novel, but like a story to go with it, to actually just detail the whole plot, because it is there. At least for us, for me and Logan, it's like a concrete story. We just never actually wrote it to like a final draft. it's like a whole bunch of drafts that are just like, and then this happens, and then this happens, and like we sort of gave stuff names, and then stuff changed, and we had enough of a framework to piece together the album. But the thing is, if somebody's really, really into the plot, it goes deep enough to the point where like I realized a plot hole like last month. But I was like, oh wait, hold up, how does that work? And I'm like, I'm still thinking about it even though it's done.
Yeah. And I'd imagine too that if somebody interprets it differently, like it almost has to broaden your ideas on how this album could sound as well, right?
Oh yeah, and because we never officially said, hey, this is the story, all you have to go by is the lyrics. That's great. I'm glad people interpret it however they want. And like the choruses were intentionally sort of left open like that. The choruses most of the times don't like say this is a thing that is happening. It can be open to interpretation. That's great. That's awesome. Like I love that. If you can get meaning out of the music and like it, you resonate with it, that's super cool. That's great. I'm glad.
Yeah. In addition, you kind of have like a post-apocalyptic narrative that goes along with the times that we're in right now, as well as like, and not to say that this is part of a trend or anything like that, but like I feel like with bands like you and Lorna Shore and Shadow of Intent and maybe even Flesh God Apocalypse or something like that, with like this very breakdown-driven but orchestral and atmospheric element, I feel like that this is going to appeal to a lot of fans. Like I think that this is the time more than ever to have an album like Technotheism.
It's funny you say that because conceptually, so I started writing this in 2017. I think that's posted somewhere. That's when like the initial ideas for this I started like sending out. And at the time we had like a full ass band. That was like a whole other thing. And like I remember not too long after they announced Cyberpunk 2077, the video game. I was like, oh, that's cool. And like I don't know the dates. I think they announced it in 2017. Maybe it was earlier. But it's like we sat on this album for so long that now Cyberpunk is like relevant to normal people. Like it's kind of in the mainstream now. Like Cyberpunk is this huge game and a lot of people probably heard that term for the first time. And it's like that was unintentional, but that also was like, oh, that is coincidentally great timing for us.
Yeah. I mean, when I first heard the term cyberpunk, I thought it was a subgenre. I'm not gonna lie, but it does sound like it.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Yeah, but yeah, everybody's been talking about that for a while. That was taking up the majority of people's news feeds nowadays, but yeah, like I think that it's really cool that you released it at this time because it's much more appropriate now.
Yeah.
If you released it in 2017, people might blame you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, think about how many albums are 10 times more unsettling now because of what they predicted. Like the last Within Temptation album, the last Heaven Shall Burn album. There's quite a lot that was just like, wow, damn you.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
Yeah. So before we go, I want to thank you so much for your time. Great to be able to talk with you, and I really look forward to more people hearing this album. It's definitely an album for the times. Is there just anything else that you would like to promote for the Design Abstract, like in terms of merch or maybe a live stream performance or anything new? Because I feel like that this is a really good creative entity that could keep a lot of people busy.
I'm glad. Yeah, no, I appreciate all the kind words you said and all the support you've given it. I guess obligatorily, because of popular demand, we're doing a really limited run of CDs that we just announced today or yesterday. So if you like Technotheism, pre-orders are open. We're going to ship out hopefully in a couple weeks. There's that. Otherwise, not really. I'm not super great at the marketing angle. I just write music. I had help with the marketing for this. That's why it went so well.
Shout out to John Asher.
Yes. Thank you so much, John. This album would not be where it is if it wasn't for him. We got a new guitarist recently, and we're working on new tunes. That's kind of what I'm excited about. I know it's like super early, but like that's what I do with my time is I'm like already making new music. So yeah, I'm excited about that. I don't know when it's going to come out, but that's sort of the biggest announcement that I have. But otherwise, pick up a CD. Maybe in the future we'll do another run of shirts because we only have a couple left. Yeah, and thanks so much for checking out Technotheism to everybody who's watching or listening or whatever. It means a lot to both of us.
Yep, and let's see who could outmatch it for 2021.
Yeah.
But thank you so much, everybody. Voiicide of the Design Abstract. Pick up Technotheism if you haven't already. This is Alex from Heavy New York. We will see you next time.